The human fixed the alien woman's broken bone. She stood frozen. We don't do such things. The crash had lit up the sky like a second sun. Sergeant Eli Mercer had been on patrol near the edge of the Olyssari expanse when the alien ship came screaming down like a meteor, gouging a smoking trench into the rocky plain. Protocol told him to wait for backup, to report and observe. But something told him otherwise. He moved fast, rifle at the ready, senses alert. The wreckage still burned, leaking pale blue coolant into the dust. The hull was clearly alien, sleek, sharp, obsidian black with glowing veins of orange. And then he saw her. She was trying to crawl from the cockpit, her leg bent at a sickening angle, tall and willowy, skin like soft bronze wrapped in dark armor. She looked like a figure carved from myth. One arm dragged her body forward, her face twisted in pain. As she looked up, her eyes met his, wide and gold, glowing faintly through the smoke. He raised both hands. "I'm not here to hurt you," he said gently. She bared her teeth. "Stay back, human. You won't get far on that leg." She tried to rise, screamed, fell. Eli rushed forward, ignoring the growl she gave as he knelt beside her. "You have a compound fracture. I need to set the bone or you'll bleed out." I said stay. Her words cut short as he pressed his hand gently but firmly against her thigh. "Listen to me. I can help. I've treated field injuries before. You want to walk again? Let me do this." She looked at him, panting, shocked by the calm in his voice. "Do it." The moment her bones snapped back into place, she let out a sharp cry, but didn't pull away. Eli wrapped the leg tightly with fabric from his field kit, splinting it with 2 thin rods. Afterward, she sat frozen, staring at him. "You risked your hand for me," she said slowly. "Yeah," he replied, wiping his brow. "Would have done the same for anyone." Her golden eyes flickered. "We don't do such things." "What things?" She hesitated. "Touch one another with care. Not like that. Not in our culture." Eli blinked. "You don't help each other when you're hurt." "We survive. We endure. If a bone breaks, we wait for it to heal. Or we don't. Pain is a test of worth." He frowned. "That's not survival. That's suffering. It is our way." "Well, it's not mine." She looked at him like he had cracked the sky open. Her name was Karin of the Olyssari, an alien warrior cast from a far-off sector few humans had ever ventured into. Her people were known for their cold demeanor, unbreakable discipline, and total devotion to strength. She didn't speak much after that, but when he offered her water, she took it. When he offered his shoulder, she leaned on it reluctantly. They waited 2 days before a signal beacon was answered. In that time, Karin's leg began to mend, thanks to human tech and basic care. She watched him in silence, her gaze a constant weight. On the 3rd night, she finally said, "Why?" He looked up from the fire. "Why what? Why did you help me?" "Because you needed help." "That is not enough. Not for a human. Not for an Olyssari." Eli smiled faintly. "Maybe I'm just built different." She didn't laugh, but something in her softened. When the recovery vessel arrived, Karin was taken aboard on a stretcher. Eli was questioned by command, praised for his initiative, but warned about alien cultural boundaries. He didn't care. He thought that would be the end of it. It wasn't. 2 weeks later, she arrived at his outpost, fully healed, dressed in ceremonial armor, her expression unreadable. "I requested to see you," she said. "You tracked me down?" Eli asked, genuinely surprised. "It is custom," she said. "In my culture, a life debt is owed. But that is not why I came." He raised an eyebrow. "No." She stepped closer. "You showed me something. Something I believed weakness. And yet I lived, and I healed faster than any in my unit. You're welcome? No, she said. You don't understand. That moment, you touched me with no intent to dominate or claim. It was not a transaction. It was a gift. That's usually how compassion works, he replied with a grin. She frowned, but not angrily. We do not have that word in our tongue. Then maybe it's time you borrowed one. Karen stayed longer than Command liked. Officially, she was observing human medical practices for cultural exchange. Unofficially, she followed Eli on his rounds, watched him treat wounded soldiers, helped him when she could. Slowly, her demeanor shifted. Where once her voice was cold, it now carried curiosity. She asked questions. She listened, and one day, she touched his arm, not in combat, not in defense, but in shared warmth. You changed something in me, she told him under the stars. He looked at her, the firelight flickering between them. For the better? I don't know, she said, but I do not fear pain as I once did, and I no longer fear the softness of others. He hesitated, then asked, Do you fear me? No, she said. You confuse me. Good confusion? She looked down at her hand, resting next to his. I think so. It didn't become love in a day, but it became something. She began speaking of her people, of the rigid rules that kept them from knowing tenderness. He shared stories of his sister, who was a medic, and of the human belief that strength included kindness. She began teaching him bits of her language, strange, melodic, full of nuance. He began to dream of what a life between two cultures might look like. When Karen was ordered back to her territory, she didn't argue, but before she left, she placed something in his palm, a polished shard of her ship's hull, etched with her name in Olyssari runes. It is a calling token, she said. If you ever speak my name into the wind while holding this, I will come. Eli looked down at the token, then up at her. I'm going to hold you to that. She gave him the smallest smile. Then say it only if you mean it. Months passed. Then a year. Eli never used the token. Not until a tremor shook his camp and reports came in. An Olyssari border conflict had gone hot, and one of their warriors was spotted alone in human territory, being hunted. He went outside, wind whipping his face, and held the shard in his hand. He spoke her name. She arrived 3 days later, bleeding but alive, and when she saw him, she didn't speak. She simply walked into his arms.